Hello, everyone. I'm back with our next interview, and I would like to welcome Ari Peralta, who's described as the wellness coach. And I would like him to, make his proper introduction and tell you all about his research work and why it's really interesting, not just in the hospitality sector, but also very much at the same time, and why we are very excited to, to collaborate with Ari and in the future. And let me start to ask you the question, Ari. Very welcome here, and can you please tell us a bit about yourself?
Thank you, Yasmin, for having me here. So my name is Ari Peralta. I'm the founder of Arigami, and we are a well-being and innovation studio, and we help really solve some grand human challenges using sensory research, using an interdisciplinary approach, and working cross markets. So we have an opportunity to work improving well-being and really embodying sustainability as we go forward.
So Arigami, how did you start Arigami? What is because you have a very colorful background, having done a lot of different things. How did you come up with the idea, and what inspired you to create Arigami?
So I wish I could say that I just one day woke up and had the idea to create Arigami. Instead, it's been an evolution. We started as a multisensory fashion company looking to make a splash in the multisensory world. And the more I got into multisensory research, the more fascinated I became. And really then the company evolved towards a research agency. Since then, we've worked with auto manufacturers, with some of the largest hotel companies on earth, and with some smart gadget companies as well. Again, finding ways to bridge the gap between theory and practice.
So in your articles and even in our conversations, you talk very often about wellness tech. It's a very interesting term that we have looked into also, and I would love to get your definition on wellness tech or well tech.
You know, we're so stuck on certain words, including well-being and wellness, and a lot of people have some issues with those words. For us, well tech really is defined by two combinations, right? Well-being and technology. And as it implies, it's technology that promotes well-being, that promotes human, mental, physical, environmental, spiritual, and financial health. So there's many layers to this. So right now with technology, we have to see and promote an additional effort towards elements that make us feel better, that improve our moods, and that honestly don't do us harm. So for us, well tech is this umbrella term that encompasses these technologies for good, for positive human transformation.
Excellent. It makes a lot of sense. It's a very interesting field. Um, it's not only, like I said in the beginning, limited to the hospitality sector, but talking about it as, we have a lot of, audience from the hospitality sector. What would you say are the innovations that you can bring into hospitality? And can you give us some examples?
Well, you know, for the most part, you don't really want to talk about bringing science into hospitality. What you really want to talk about is bringing solutions to hospitality. And that's what we really focus on, is understanding the different pain points that exist within the guest journey. And what we see an interesting shift in hospitality is this expansion in definition from thinking that it's all about the hotel room or just the on-site experience, but really broadening it. One of the things that we're helping a lot of our clients with is helping evolve their propositions in wellness and taking wellness outside of the spa. And that involves including new digital marketplaces for well tech experiences. This includes integration with new apps such as Calm, Silent Mode, and other companies that exist out there. And it also includes really this new integration of wearable technologies. And we're not talking about bulky technologies, but things that can be easily added on and are a pleasurable, enjoyable experience for the guests.
Excellent. And you have done in the past already a project with some hotel brands. Can you give one example and describe a bit what one of those was?
So we worked with the biggest one with Marriott International, and this is the company that, of course, owns JW Marriott, that owns the W, Ritz-Carlton, amongst many other brands. And part of what we helped them with was come up with strategic choices on how to improve jet lag propositions across their brands. And we did this by using different sensory touch points, in particular using combinations of light, sound, and data that was gathered from their app. Now, some of these propositions are still taking place, so I can't discuss too much about it. But I think what's exciting is that we're now shifting from talking about how to solve functional human issues like sleep in a much more comprehensive way. And while many of these brands, including Marriott, have made attempts at this throughout the years, it's really been done in silos. And what we are bringing to the table is this connective tissue, this membrane that brings together these different siloed projects and gives it a common denominator so that we can actually make these efforts and initiatives, make it to the guest room, make it to the reception area, make it to dining and F&B, make it into all aspects of well-being. And we're grateful that this movement started in spa, but now we're even more excited to see this wave carry through in all aspects of our lives.
No, that's very interesting. And I think we're just at the beginning of seeing more and more like that, integrating into it. Have you, is there already feedback from hotel guests? I mean, that have experienced these, applications?
So these are still in test mode. And that's what's exciting about some of these projects is that that there is a prototype process. And that's what you kind of need to get into properties. I mean, it's all about making the ROI very clear and visible to hotel owners. And at this point, we've struggled, I think, as an industry to come up with innovations that are scalable. And I think that all comes down to that reality check at the end. When you have that prototype and it finally works and you get the results you're seeking, can this be implemented on a scale? And I think those are two concerns that are beyond the scope of prototyping. It comes down to suppliers and the supply chain and working directly hand in hand with manufacturers of some of these products and devices. And I think part of what makes us different is that we kind of nest and create an ecosystem around these problems so that we can find comprehensive solutions to them. So again, answering your question, a lot of these projects are being implemented in specific properties, sometimes just on a single floor. But I think where we see much more promise and ease for owners to adapt some of these new technologies really fall under sound. That seems to be something that is easily integrated or easily updated. We're seeing a lot of owners respond well to bolted on solutions. And in terms of spa, we're always talking now about dry solutions, in particular amid the COVID pandemic.
Very good. I will come back to the spa in a second, but there's something like, kind of going as a red thread through all of your work. You talk a lot, you're focusing on, on neuroscience and the role of neuroscience in human behavior. What do you think can neuroscience help with in the guest's experience?
Well, neuroscience is still a relatively new field. And I say new because the technologies around neurocapture continue to get better and better. We're still finding new areas of the brain. So it's an exciting new science where we're filling in the gaps as we go, but there's many, many, many gaps to go. We're far away from mapping the entire human brain and understanding the complexities involved. Many times we like to think that there's just sections in the brain and they're just in charge of one thing. But ultimately, like life, they're quite intricate systems that speak to one another. I think what neuroscience is helping us understand is really the behavioral pattern that some of these chemical and electrical reactions, how they can be predicted, how we can use them to improve design, and how we can really validate what people feel. Up to this point, we've relied heavily on surveys and other what I would call two-dimensional approaches, because some of these elements are subconscious. When we're talking about sound and light, we're not really perceptive or open to acknowledging some of these elements unless we kind of get into the brain and get into some biometrics and can validate it another way. So I think it's giving us, neuroscience is opening the door for new opportunities to validate wellness experiences. And for brands, it's giving them the opportunity to step it up from gimmick to actually transformation.
Well, it's very interesting. I mean, I have in my career, worked a lot on my own gut feeling and worked on sound, as you know, and scent already like 15 years ago. But I find it really exciting to see how we can back it by, by data and by more research work in the future. And I think that, I mean, knowing that 95% of our decisions, our life is, still kind of guided by our subconscious and not our conscious mind, it is a very interesting field where I think in many areas research is going in to show that we have much more power if we step, out of the conscious life zone that we are all living, and which is very much, a memory of the past instead of a vision of the future. So, talking about a vision of the future, what do you think can architects and hoteliers together do to, to improve well-being in hotels?
Well, I think there's much to do, and there is much incentive. First of all, it's an absolute pleasure to work with architects such as yourself, who are really opening the doors and also being a part of this bridge that's literally connecting these distant worlds together and making new sense out of information and research that we have into actual applications that can improve people's lives. I think there's no greater role that has greater incentive in this moment than an architect. I think it's a very specific role. I highly respect architects, first because I have such a great experience with them, but because of the natural curiosity and intention that goes behind design. And any great architect, is far beyond aesthetics. And I think that's where we've made it in design, where it doesn't just need to look nice or feel, but it needs to feel nice, it needs to feel great, and we need to validate that. So I think it starts with that major component, but then you need an active player, partner as a hotel brand or hotelier to really then help facilitate some of that transformation. And it's not a one size fits all. It's going to be an experience, a journey of lessons, and there will be lessons in many directions. But I think, that openness, that concept of collaboration, but taking that not so much side by side, but how can we cross train each other and produce some of these elements together. But I think the hoteliers and architects specifically have quite a big work ahead of them. Well-being is complicated. It's different for each individual, but this would be the key to guest experiences. And we often talk about hyper-personalization and some of those elements to create a greater guest experience. We're far from it, but it's tools like these, and it's opening ourselves up to new tools like neuroscience that can help spearhead that movement forward. And I think what I'm really excited about is really creating guest experiences that are relevant, that are contextually relevant, that are seamless, but ultimately that make me feel better, make me a better human, makes my environment healthier and better. And I think those are just all things that we're all starting to express much more clearly now. So it's exciting to see a new wave of the innovations to come.
No, I think we're totally agreeing on this point. I do believe that we are living in a time where it's not just about the experience in hotels, but about transformation. How can your mind, body, soul, be enhanced, and you come out, after, a stay in a resort hotel or in some kind of hotel where suddenly your quality of life has improved, where it's not just the experience in a moment in time, but where that experience is being taken, into your life and implemented into your life. We have been talking about our common interest in the blue zones, and I've been saying that if we can transfer the idea of a blue zone into hospitality, it would be, a major success. And what are your thoughts on that? I mean, we had a little chat about that, but maybe you can share.
I think it's that same concept that we just need to bring in at every level. The innovations that we need in hospitality, they exist. They're just not going to come from the industry. So it's this time to be exploratory. It's this time to be a bit curious and to try and adapt. And they're never complete perfect fits. So there's always adaptation needed for these systems. But I think what's exciting about putting blue zones and other lenses like that, it gives us another way of looking at hospitality. It gives us another function. And as you know, I often write about nature and its inspiration on design and how we should look more at following a biomimetic approach to well-being and sustainability. Well, one thing that's very clear about nature is that it's multifunctional. And I think that's the aspect, that's the adjective that we really need to, or the verb that we really need to bring to hospitality, multifunctionality. And I think that, if we've learned anything across the past year, really with COVID, it's that, we missed a very great opportunity to serve other functions within the community. And now with some of these technologies that are blurring the lines into what is a hotel and what is not a hotel, it's the perfect moment, kind of like our Earth when there are plate tectonic shifts. It's the perfect moment to kind of introduce something new right now. But I love that concept. And I think there's exciting new concepts happening, and some which I know you're involved with and your team's involved with. But I think this whole idea of creating well-being and wellness habitats, whether they're hospitality ecosystems or healthy aging ecosystems, I think that's really a trend that I don't see going away anytime soon.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's like tapping into the very interesting area of anti-aging and and longevity. But from I would say, it's also an area that is a bit exploited by marketing and kind of products that promise miracles to happen. I think, yeah, we both agree we have to tackle this from a very professional and scientifically backed background. But then it becomes really exciting, and the opportunities, what you can do, manifold, and how you can use that time in a hotel. I think especially in resort hotels, but not necessarily only, but where you can, create something that will really change not just your mind, your system, your whole body. And we know already that you can, you can create your own recovery and wellness if it's all interconnected within yourself, and your mindset is also aligned with it. So talking about sustainability, it's a word that I sometimes now almost don't like to use anymore because it's so abused and it's like becoming a buzzword. But if we would take sustainability further and say what is it really that we are talking about, because we have been talking about, it doesn't only mean using obviously sustainable materials, which I think is very important, which we are, as you know, we have done a lot of research on, but it's also about integrating the community, local food, spices, herbs. How could you, all integrate that in a much more better sense? And that comes also to the next part, which is connected, which is nutrition, because all that plays a role in the well-being of, of a human being.
It's a challenging question. How what comes after sustainability, and unfortunately, I don't have an answer as to what comes after, but I do have an answer as to what comes in the next few years. And I think right now we're experiencing what I would call passive sustainability, and where we need to move towards is active sustainability. And you hit it right on the nail when you mentioned being an integrated and intricate part and active component to whatever ecosystem that is, including the community, including the environment. And when we look at sustainability in terms of nature, what does sustainability mean? It means it survives, and not only survives, but it thrives so much that it can evolve. And I think that's what we need. We need properties, experiences, designs that are multifunctional and that can evolve with people as we evolve. And I think that's going to be key. And we're moving towards that. Right now, when we talk about sustainability, I hear a lot of architects and designers talking about the choice in materials, the forms and shapes, but that's still aesthetics. Now we need to move into the conversation on those natural systems underneath those surfaces that improve thermal conditions or that improve energy resources and consumption. And nature is the ultimate technology. We often forget that we are technology, technology that we know in terms of devices, that's all nature because it comes from us. These are just other versions of tools that we use to live better lives. But I think that's the part where we need to start working on. What does better lives mean in an automated society? What is better in wellness and well-being? What's the new definition going to be when we no longer drive ourselves, when we no longer have a check-in person at the lobby? These are very major considerations that every brand should take. And these are some issues that we can prevent. And I think part of what we're seeing right now with this fallout with COVID, and really what will happen afterwards, which is just a bunch of people really wanting to get out there and have holiday and experience things and have a taste of life again, as we all do. But really what we're going to start seeing outside of this authenticity and meaning, which I think is kind of like where we are at now, we're going to start seeing this need for connection. And I think that is something that hospitality has always been about. It's been about bringing people together, bringing experiences together, bringing new things together, bringing familiar things together. So that's what's exciting in terms of how to do that in a sustainable way where you participate. And sustainability isn't a checklist, it's a system. So we have to start looking at these procedures and protocols almost as living organisms and let them live and really interact with them in a way that we can adapt them, we can evolve them as we continue to evolve.
No, that was a brilliant description. And I would add on that, we have to think about our own sustainability because, we are part of the sustainability concept in a sense, because, the more we take care about ourselves, the longer we will live, and it's not about longevity, it's about quality of life. If you can extend your life with a quality of life, I think that's what everybody is like striving for. But you have mentioned a few times COVID, which we can't have an interview during the pandemic without having to touch it, at least for some maybe some points that might be of interest. What would you say has COVID changed, and what do you think will be a change after we're out of this, and where is it maybe going to stay the same? What do you think do we learn from it, and how can we adapt the life after COVID? Because you have these kind of very different views, like some saying, well, it's at the moment the vaccine is there and everybody is vaccinated, and in a few years from now life goes back. And some say, well, there's certain things that will never be the same. I believe I'm part more of the second opinion, where I believe it won't be ever the same. I don't, I do see that we will have social contact and it won't be about social distancing. That's more like a temporary measurement that I feel necessary, but it will be still more about the individual and personalization, what you said, and not just like all the same and treat all the same. It's different. And then my next question will be also, what is the future of hotels looking like, and who will be the survivors and who will be the losers, because there will be.
So big questions there. And I think with the COVID question, I think we could use an entire session just to discuss that. So I'm just going to go as top line as I can. There's so much that we continue to learn with COVID. Unfortunately, it's not over yet. And it's going to obviously affect us in 2021. We'll see to what extent. But I think there's much that we've learned. Primarily, we learned that we can do a better job at sanitizing hospitality environments. And even though we were already up there as an industry as being quite clean, I think what this has done to all industries, COVID, is that it has made the invisible visible. And take a moment and just absorb that. It's made the invisible visible. We're talking about something that our eyes cannot see, and it's shut down the entire world. What it's bringing to our focus is that there are other layers of this world that we need to design around and design for and protect against. And I think what COVID reminds us is that, architecture and design is much more than skin deep, right? It's beyond that. And I think if there's any lesson that we can take moving forward, it's how can we be more conscious of what we can't see? How can we be more conscious of that? Because there's a lot of other issues that we've dealt with that we need to address in design, like mental health, like neurodiversity, and other things that we cannot see that are quite as important. But I think it's easier now to talk about those subjects because we've been talking about COVID for such a long time. Now, I also agree with you that moving forward, I mean, from what I understand history, we never go back. We always just keep moving forward with the pieces we have at the time, with additional challenges we face. And there will be more challenges that we will face moving forward. Obviously, climate change being one of the biggest, if not the major challenge. But I think with COVID, there is no going back. It's about a new normal. And that's the part that we get to make together. And I think some of the elements that we've learned in addition to that, look at how we're doing virtual events. Look at this way of transferring information in a way that, yes, it's getting a bit tedious, but once you start blending that back in with physical in-person events, it's quite interesting to see how we're going to socialize and communicate. Now, what do I see as the future of hospitality? It's quite fun because I'm quite a futurist when I'm asked a question like this. So I want to push it as far as I can. And I see an ultimate blank canvas. In other words, I see anything. Anything is possible within hospitality, uh, especially with the adoptions of technologies that aren't just used for information technology, but used to improve customer experiences, used to improve the way people engage before, during, and post trip. The customer journey is now expanded besides the on-site experience. And when hotel brands are able to extend and amplify that experience, that great experience, to other moments in a person's life, then they're tied. Then there's a wonderful future for that brand. So the ones that will make it are the ones that follow updates in their infrastructure. Because I think, honestly, every hotel brand wants to do better. Every hotel brand, to a certain extent, is researching new things to do. But what I've noticed is that they lack the business infrastructure to support those innovations. So they get stuck in the innovation pipeline. So part of what we need to do is unclog that innovation pipeline. And one of the things that is a solution to that problem, at least for some of the projects we've worked on, is creating an intra-departmental or cross-departmental budget for well-being and for sustainability and for some of these other things. Ultimately, if you have, again, a connective tissue that streamlines these messages across your different arms, then you're more likely to actually make impact and have that impact return back on ROI.
Well, I like very much, yeah, your idea of having a specific budget for it, because only when you do that, you take it really serious and you understand the necessity, and that it's not just like, something in addition to have, but it would be, I think, we're looking at, a lot of things that has happened, and many hotel brands or hotels going to go into a very difficult time, and some are going to collapse. And so you would have to anticipate the future. The only way you survive is to anticipate the future. That's what I always say in everything in life. You can't wait for things to happen. You have to make them happen. And seeing how technology has evolved in the last decade itself is so amazing that we know we can never go back to a slower pace. We have to take in what we have learned and try to innovate and solve the problems that we have. So I think as creatives, we are the ones who can solve problems for companies that are too big, too difficult to manage, because we are more like I think as individuals, we have much more flexibility to adjust and to kind of look into the future. And also another comment on talking about the invisible making visible. I think that explains the whole idea of why multi-sensory design is so important, because sound is something you can hear, but if you think about scent, and it's again something that you cannot see, and you cannot see the air. We know there's electricity, but we don't see the electricity. We see the lighting, the outcome of it. So there's this is a really interesting subject. Again, it could be another interview, but to make the invisible world visible. And in this case, we have like a threat that has taken over the world, as you said, with COVID, which we cannot even see, but which has changed our life forever. And I would like now to come, because I'm very excited that you're also joining my new hotel brand concept, which I launched, the Y Hotel, which we want to, which we are planning to roll out hopefully in the next few years, and which is about innovation and taking my experience in having worked in the hospitality sector for a very long time, and taking it to a new level where wellness, well-being, innovation, but also cultural events are all combined in a concept that shall be rolled out outside city centers. And I think the pandemic has accelerated the need for having places where you can be in nature, but you're connected to an amazing hotel. You have wellness areas, you have brainstorming rooms instead of the normal monotonous conference rooms where companies would come and do presentations or do their own brainstorming. So I call it more brainstorming rooms. And where the My Kidsy playground concept, which you know about, the innovative concept where kids can learn life skills, and where the whole surrounding is built by sustainable materials and furniture, can all be combined. And I'm very excited that you're going to join us. And can you maybe in a few words say how you think you can contribute to my concept that we want to roll out?
The future is all about modularity, and that's something that your concept is literally its foundation is modularity and well-being. And for us, we want to showcase other ways of experiencing well-being or achieving well-being outside of the spa. So looking at different frequencies with light and sound and scent and different combinations of such, not in a prescriptive way, but in a personalized way, where every experience is worth experiencing. And I think that's it's an exciting an exploratory chapter in the hospitality space, because I don't think anything quite exists like it. And I think that's what's exciting for us to be able to support on the research end. And our goal is to be able to validate the changes that are being made, but not just stop there, being able to then improve the way we communicate that validation to guests, so that guests can feel the difference, but can also understand the difference. And we don't want to overwhelm people with science, but we do want to give them the peace of mind that the solutions that we're bringing forward actually make change. And I think that's what's exciting when we're looking at things in the aging space, looking at cellular activity, looking at if there is actual cellular difference, let's say collagenesis in terms of development of new collagen, all the way to looking at frequencies in sound and light through gamma waves, and looking how to reset people's states. But I think this is an exciting time because we get to play with new technologies and new concepts that really bring the outside nature back indoors, if you will, but not in a prescriptive way, but in a way that allows you to grow with it. And I think that's what's exciting, that flexibility, that modularity. And I can't wait to continue to see the developments in this project and to share more on how we play with wearables and some other technologies that will integrate to explore other ways we can improve the guest experience moving forward.
Yeah, I think we have to keep a bit of mystery what we are exactly going to do in the future to have a level of surprise. But I'm very excited about it, and I think it will change, the status quo, and especially in well-being and in hospitality. And I can't wait to roll it out and get it into, because at the end of the day, both of us want to see it implemented and not just be, talking about it in theory. This comes maybe to like one of the last questions. We both know that very often, because they are not so tangible, these ideas, a lot of people maybe watching now coming from investment or, financial institutions. Oh, this sounds all really interesting, amazing, but who's going to afford it? How much is it going to cost? And I think we can, we have discussed how we can prove also what is the financial benefit of it and what is actually the cost of not being innovative right now, because the cost will be much more, I think, the investment to look into the future and to adapt these ideas we just discussed. And actually not just in hospitality, but because that's being one of our subjects today. Yeah, maybe you can expand a bit more on that.
It's all about the language. So, if you're an architect or a design firm and looking to propose some of these ideas to a hotelier, to a hotel brand, you have to align that language with the language that brand has. And in particular, for us, we've had to update from let's create multisensory well-being environments to let's create new sellable multisensory experiences. So there's always going to have to be a shift. So that's the one recommendation I would do is really, and I think you made a great point when you talked about savings. That's something that we do a lot, in particular with like the NHS or any kind of organization that we work with on that end, where we have to talk about first the savings, because they'll capture that right away. You can prove that you can make them money later, but if you can prove that you can save them money now, that's just as good. So I think for us, in terms of your brand, but also for any other brands that are out there looking as to, what do I move forward next? Part of why research is important is because we come in and find empirical verticals where we can then quantify this information. And ultimately, you need numbers. It can't be subjective. And a lot of these exciting technologies seem to have a profound amount of anecdotal evidence, but that's where it stops. And anecdotal is qualitative, it's subjective. They want numbers, right? Because numbers is like money, you can count it. So part of what we're making more accessible as well is finding ways, including with our partnership with you, to how do we quantify well-being? What are aspects that we can measure of this so that we can then go back and measure the impact that had? But there is an ultimate benefit to making things better, and it's that people will return, right? And what we are going to set out to prove through this and many other projects is that we can create this in an efficient way as well. And I think that's what's exciting about working with frequencies and with some of these other elements that we're not so exposed to. It's because they're already there. They're already there. It's just about playing with them in the right light.
Absolutely, that's a very good ending. I think we could go on, but I would like to wrap it up now. And maybe just before I have the final words, can you wrap up just in a few sentences, what you think can this change be, and why it has to happen now?
So, things couldn't be more different today than they were a year ago. And things are only going to change continuously more rapidly moving forward. Right now, if you're an architect or you're a designer, it's the perfect opportunity to start absorbing new areas and new fields and start adopting some of those best practices into your practice. Whether it's looking at behavioral and environmental psychology, whether it's looking at sustainability and new materials, whether it's looking at neuroscience, moods, and sensory, there's many paths for you to take, but now is the time to start expanding your practice. I think that hoteliers will depend on those architectural firms and designers who offer a multifaceted approach to design. And I think it's that comprehensive and holistic approach that could lead us and will lead us to a happier and more sustainable future.
Well, I think it's about a process, and as architects and designers, we have to be the ones who are implementing the process, from where we were to where we want to go, and that we ultimately are serving the industry, we are serving the guests, and by understanding the human condition and the necessity and the really urgent questions everybody has, and if we can solve them in some way, I think we are fulfilling more than even the expectations are going to be, and in that, in return, will create very happy guests, and I think very loyal followers to come back over and over again. And I totally agree that all these areas that are very interconnected, and it's not just for me, it has never been just about architecture and design. It's been about psychology, about human behavior, about consumerism, about understanding how can we serve at the end, and how can we improve a stay that would go beyond that moment in time, but will have impact in the rest of your life. I think if we can achieve that, it sounds like maybe a very ambitious message, but I think we are able to do this, and especially COVID has stopped us all a moment to reflect and to really kind of rewind and think, is this all right what we have been doing, chasing, and especially I would say in the hospitality sector, just to do what everybody else is doing and not be innovative enough and be even scared of innovation because the establishment has been so proven that it works, and then a bomb comes in and the whole thing is shattered, and you're forced to rethink. And I think that's where everybody, every creative one serving in the industry has to rethink and reposition themselves and see how can we create this together in the future with with the investor, the operator, the brands, developers, and everybody involved in the process. And I think it's an exciting time when you look at it from that point of view. Well, thank you so much for your contribution. I really appreciate your time. I'm looking forward to our collaboration, and that we can see all these ideas, coming to fruition and really being implemented in many places around the world. Thank you very much, Ari.
Thank you, Yasmin.
If you liked the interview, please share it with someone who you think might find it interesting. And stay tuned for next week's episode.